This episode brought to you by having a job. Many people have them. Some people don't. On average, the people who have them have more money. So why don't you get a job today? Be like me and have a job. Or have two of them. Work hard. It's called having a job. So don't waste another moment. Text the code Hannah the Human to get a free job now on me. It won't cost a dime out of your pocket, and you may get a few dimes back in return. So try it now. Having a job. Again, that's the promo code Hannah the Human. Text it now to get a job. Let's hit that theme song. Oh, nice. We're going for, existential vibes. Hannah. Hannah the Human. I can get down with it. Get down with it. Get down with it. Well, yeah, because I've had a job, it's been busy. It's been really busy, and I do have two of them during the summer, so that's why I didn't get an episode released. Well, there's so many reasons why. Basically, the point is I didn't release an episode last week, so I'm going to release an episode right now as you're listening to it, and here on Tuesday, except that it isn't Tuesday. Anyway, basically, I'm going to release an episode, and then 1 week later, release another one, so on average, it'll be a podcast every other week, so yeah, that's what I'm going to do, because it was Monday last week, and I realized, wow, I totally forgot about the whole podcast thing. It might have been because of the two jobs and 4th of July weekend and all that, and my sister visiting, but for whatever reason, like I said, I didn't record a podcast, although I did go kind of start driving up a mountain, and then I was just inspired by the moment, and I recorded something. So I think I'm going to play that, but I also just really quickly want to catch you up on speed of what's going on, with me, because you really do care. I know you do. And the fact of the matter is I care to tell you. So here it is. What I'm doing is I am in northern Idaho, and it's a lovely summer. It finally has started feeling like summer. And I am serving at a restaurant. I'm working at my dad's business called the Clark Fork Pantry, which if you are in Idaho, you need to go to the Clark Fork Pantry. It's amazing. I now eat a ton of sandwiches and ice cream from there because, deals since I'm related to the owner. Anyway, I'm living literally above the pantry. My bed is in my dad's office, and I have adjusted to that fact. And, I am looking forward to having my own bedroom after the summer is over. Yes, I have my uninterrupted space to sleep in, but there is no place I can go to guarantee quiet, which also is another reason why recording a podcast has been a little different. It's just a different vibe when I don't have my own space that I know I won't be interrupted in, because after about 9 a.m., my dad needs to use his office, to work. So now that's not my space. So then I migrate to the living room, but then my dad comes in or my brother comes in, and then I'm like, well, maybe I'll go to my dad's bedroom and hang out. But then, oh, wait, he needs to come in and change his shirt before he goes into town. And so, that's why I take drives up into the mountains, because then I'm alone. And I did have a really fun time. I hiked on Saturday, and I was trying to be relaxing, or the goal was to be relaxing, but it wasn't quite relaxing because I guess I just didn't calculate that walking 4.5 miles would be tiring, and then you have to walk back. So it's like walking 9 miles is a long walk. But I really wanted to see this mountain lake, and I did go eventually to it. It took me 2.5 hours to walk up the mountain to it. And then I got a swim in it, and it was so nice, and I ate my sandwich and read my book for about half an hour, and then I started back down the mountain. It only took me 2 hours and 15 minutes to go down, and it was way more relaxing, and I got to pause and look at the beauty and kind of explore this little waterfall and stuff. So probably if I had just kept walking on and not stopped and done a few things, it would have taken me 2 hours, but that's not important information for you to know. I just want you to know that I'm so amazing and adventurous, and I also have to go to work now in about 20 minutes. So I think that's all that I'm going to do for updates. You'll really enjoy this little moment of Zen. This is you just getting a glimpse on what it's like in my little quiet zone, when I'm journaling up in the mountains in the sunshine and all that good jazz. So you get a little peek into the magic what makes Hannah. And speaking of interruptions, I think my dad just walked in the door. So what a great time to end this portion of talking. And now I'm going to go to the pre-recorded mountain experience. I don't know where it came from, this whole emphasis to change the world. I mean, for those of us like me who were raised in an evangelical Christian context, I guess you could blame evangelical Christianity for making it seem like we needed to go save the world. For people who aren't in that context, I don't know, I feel like still there's this pressure to be an influencer, to make a difference. Maybe that's an American thing. I don't know. Maybe I should go to some other countries and see if there's such a emphasis on impacting the world. Either way, it doesn't really matter though how it got here, but it's there in my brain, and I see it in a lot of other people's thoughts and the ways that they act and live and talk. Make a difference. Maybe it just comes from this desire to be more than a speck of dust floating on the wind. Here today and gone tomorrow. Who knows? But personally for me, I've kind of let go of being great and changing the world. That was something I gladly let go of a few years ago, when being great was just not worth it for me. Meaning, like, I realized all these things that maybe other people delight in. Maybe other people delight in busy schedules and 10xing their business and... Oh, there goes a car. And I don't know, all these other growth strategies and impacting others and how to get the world out there and advertisement or whatever. Maybe other people like that, but for me, when I was kind of dipping my toe into that, I was doing this like leadership program thing. It was just so busy and too much. And that's when I thought, you know what? All of this stuff, it sounds good when I say it, like, oh, my creativity, I need it to reach people, and I'm supposed to sing songs to share it with the world and make a difference and change lives, and how I live is going to impact the community or whatever. All of that was just masking this really nasty pressure of, you should do this, Hannah, you should do that. You ought to. An obligation rather than a joy. And that is just deadly. And it burnt me out. It's funny because a lot of people say that, oh, the pressure of other people's desires on me was too much. For me, it's the pressure I put on myself was too much. And I've been thinking about recording a podcast and talking about love and suffering and how they relate. And it actually relates to this changing the world concept too, which is why I started with that. Because I was listening to an episode on the Minimalist podcast. By the way, they are super awesome. You can listen to their podcasts wherever podcasts are, but you can also join them on Patreon, and then you get full extended versions of the podcast. Yawning. Anyway, I pay $5 a month and get to listen to their extended versions, and I love what they... Oh my gosh, it's a bee. Yeah, I don't listen to all their episodes, but I like their thought process and the way they think. So anyway, I was listening to a podcast, a couple of different ones, and one, they were talking about how what your passion in life, what you're, quote, called to, is what you have the gift to suffer for. Like some people, like for me, it would be living torment if I had to be a construction worker. Yes, we need construction workers. Yes, I appreciate being able to build stuff and work with your hands, and I would quit. I would wither up and die if I had to do that job. It would be not worth any money in the world for me to do that long term. And so, but the other people, they love that, they find great joy, even though it's difficult, even though some days they don't want to get up and go to work. They're still like, no, I love this job. I love the feeling of accomplishment and building and whatever construction workers like about construction. Honestly, I think construction working is super sexy, but no, I can't do it. So maybe I'll marry somebody who does that kind of stuff. Anyway, the point of all this is that type of suffering, that type of hard, is doable for some people and not doable for others, aka me. And so the podcast was, people are talking in the podcast about how this idea of following your passions is really dumb if it means follow whatever lights you up and just gives you happy, smiley faces and unicorns and butterflies, because anything worth something is work. And I a year or so ago, 2 years ago, I couldn't hear that truth without being really stirred up and offended and in turmoil, because that type of language of like hard is good and, work is good. My experience was when I pushed myself and, made myself do hard things, I was so unhappy, because I was doing somebody else's hard. I was living someone else's calling and program and whatever. Right. So that's what it is. For one person, it was their calling. For me, it was a obligation. It was a program I was strapped into. It happened like for me at different church stuff. I like the idea of helping others, and I was part of a church, and they had lots of different opportunities to serve the community, and I thought they were all so cool, and so I did a ton of them. And man, I got exhausted, right? Because just because Pastor Jim Bob loves it doesn't mean that Hannah will love it. Yeah, so different instances with church and then that leadership program called Landmark made me realize, oh, I'm busy doing other people's version of what's good for them. But it's clearly not good for me. So I had a strong aversion to anything that was hard or difficult, or any language that said, push yourself, or anything about like suffering is good for you. Because I was like, hell no, suffering was not good for me. In fact, I suffered too long. I wish I had said this is annoying and quit earlier on different things, but because I stuck with it and, suffering is the way to, achieving everything in life, I suffered more than I needed to. But then this other podcast I was listening to by the Minimalist brought up a great truth that I've discovered in the past year or two. It's the fact that there really is no meaning outside of suffering. Like, this existence is pain and joy. And the joy gives meaning to the pain, and the pain gives meaning to the joy. Another car going by. It's a Subaru. Yep. There's this beautiful movie based off of C.S. Lewis's life, a part of C.S. Lewis's life, called Shadowlands. Anthony Hopkins and Deborah Winger, is that her name, act in it? Anyway, love the movie. And there's this line at the end of the movie. Well, so basically there's a difficult time and they're going through suffering, and, this lady's dealing with a sickness and all this. And the C.S. Lewis character, or one of them, I forget. Anyway, there's this line of like, they're enjoying this really happy moment, but also very aware of the fact that she's sick and could die. They say, I think she does. I think she says, laugh now, because the joy now is part of the pain then. And then at the end of the movie, there's a line that says, the pain now is a part of the joy then. So it's kind of this flip of like the joy to come, like it's kind of talking like heaven, or when everything's made right, like the pain now is part of that. And think about it. I mean, every good story, there is no good story if it's just like, and the butterflies and rainbows and happy and that's all. There's no story. There's no delight in that, right? There's only delight if you work for it. If you put in some blood, sweat, and tears for it, if it costs you something. Over the past year or two, I've become more aware and more okay with that being the way the world works, because the pain and the suffering aren't this self-inflicted difficulty, right? It's like life is difficult enough without you doing a job you hate and forcing yourself to be in a relationship you can't stand or whatever your case may be, or eating a food you dislike, or living in a place that you wish you didn't live at. Life is hard enough without imposing our own suffering. And at the same time, there is a truth to the fact that a lot of times, and this is what the podcast was pointing out, and other people have said this, I'm sure you've heard it too, resistance to suffering is the greatest suffering. I even talked about it a little bit back in that episode I did a while back about grief. If you try to resist the sorrow and the grief and the process, that's the pain that'll get you stuck. But the pain of the grief, the pain of the sorrow, the pain of the loss, and being present to that and dealing with that, that's the type that doesn't kill you but makes you stronger. Wow, break out in song. That's that type of pain where you let the pain work its magic on you. That is the suffering that results in joy. That is the hard work that results in accomplishment. And it's a very fine line between allowing pain to be a gift in your life and inflicting pain upon yourself, or allowing others to inflict it upon you. Because one is loving, the other is hateful. No parent purposely tries to make their child hurt unless that parent is a terrible person, right? No loving, kind person wants to cause destruction or pain to another. However, a good, loving parent, for example, will allow a difficult situation to be fully experienced by their child in order for that child to grow. And in my life, I noticed I have oftentimes a resistance to that concept of discipline, allowing a difficult thing to happen to create growth. There's verses in the Bible that would just rub me the wrong way, like sandpaper to my heart. It would be like, but God disciplines those he loves. And I'm like, what the heck? That does not, I intellectually know that they're talking about God is loving, but it is not registering that way. And that's when I realized, as I was listening to this podcast, I realized pain can only be received as a gift to the extent that one fully understands, accepts, and believes in unconditional love from a source that is love, right? From God. In my life, this concept of life being tough and painful, that concept can only be experienced as a gift, and that reality can only be experienced as a gift if I'm also equally aware of the truth that life is so good, that things are positioned in my favor, that love wins. Context is everything. I just thought of a really funny analogy for that. Nobody likes their butt spanked except in the context of, lovemaking, right? So you got to have the context of love. That's what I'm saying. See that beautiful context? Oh, if that analogy bothered you, just let it go. The point is that if pain is experienced without the overarching context of life, God, others, being for you, wanting the best for you, loving you, then pain doesn't have any meaning. Then pain is just unnecessary suffering. But in the context of being cared for and loved, and in the firm belief that you're enough, that you're delighted in, then the difficulty is a part of the process of unpeeling the layers of the love that God has for you. And if that kind of talk and language just makes you want to run and fight and punch and hide or whatever, then don't listen to that kind of narrative. Just listen to stuff that's going to make you aware of the fact that you're loved and that there is love, unconditional, all unending love for you out there to be received, believed, and shared. Because without that love, everything else is a clanging cymbal, a noisy gong, as this one author of the Bible wrote. You could give all your money to the poor. You could let yourself be burned on a stake by cruel people out of the desire to stand firm for the truth. But without love, it's all nothing. Without love, the suffering is pointless. The difficulty has produced nothing in you. And without love, the joy is nothing either. The joy will never satisfy. A sunrise, the birds, the sunshine, a warm hug, it will mean nothing as well. And I'm thinking, man, Hannah a year or two ago, who was not as convinced of being loved. Like, I intellectually knew it was, I wanted it to be true. I intellectually knew, yeah, life would be better if I believed I was loved. And I think I am, like, I've experienced love in my life. Like, yeah, there's kindness towards me, and yet it has to sink deep. So I'm thinking back to when it was mostly an idea and not as much a reality. And I'm thinking, if there's anybody listening that feels like they're at that point where this all sounds cool and great, but how do you get there? How do you actually live from a place of love? For me, some practical things that have helped is you let others love you. Sometimes it's really hard to believe in the force of love out there, or the universe being positioned in your favor, or whatever these grand ideas are, right? And it's a lot harder to grasp that than it is to grasp the fact that your coworker said, "Hey, is there anything I can get for you when you're sick?" I'm using a personal example. I was sick, and I said, "Yes, actually, could you get me some bananas and apples?" I let myself be loved. I let myself be needy. I've called up a friend before when I thought, I don't know if they're awake yet, but this is just bothering me, dealing with something, and I called, and that friend answers. Putting myself in positions to be loved. That helped a lot. That's one way you can do it. Surrounding yourself by people who believe they are loved as well. That's really helpful. Being around confident people gives you confidence. Being around loving people gives you love. Ultimately, for me, what has also been a huge help is believing in a God that loves me. And if ever there was a version of God that would pop up that made me feel constricted and punished or anything negative, even if it was like, but that's what the pastor says, or that's what this wise person says, or that's what the Bible says, or that's what I should believe, I would say, nope, that can't be God. That can't be the love that I'm choosing to believe exists for me. That is, in fact, just me needing to kick the devil out of God. Polishing the mirror so that when I look back at my face, I see the love that God has for me, right? There's just little instances where you can practice choosing the beliefs that align with you're awesome, you're taken care of, you are delighted in, someone's proud of you. And I will say there's a magical, mystical, spiritual truth where I surrendered to the knowledge. Basically, I surrendered to the fact that I couldn't make myself feel loved. Like, I could do a bunch of great things and do a bunch of practices that would help me, but ultimately, I have no control over the force that is really going to transform me. And that inadequacy and humility, that has been, I think, the foundation to all these other things working. I'm not trying to get better. I am allowing myself to be bettered by a God who loves me. I don't need to know how I'm going to fix a situation or transform or change a pattern of acting that I don't like. I'm going to trust that there's a spiritual force that is on my side that wants to grow me. I have to believe the promises of love that say, I'm not going to let you fail. I'm not going to let you destroy your life. And we want it to be something we do that changes us, because then we can have control over it, right? Then we can create that outcome. But kind of like I was saying in the last one, when you let go of controlling outcomes, yeah, you lose this idea that you can control your life, but you gain the real truth that you are responsible for so little. You are responsible for saying yes to the good, for allowing love in. You're responsible for turning in the direction of the light. Think of it like this. You're in a room with all the blinds drawn, and it's sunny outside. You're not responsible for making it light in there. You're not over there thinking, okay, maybe if I shout loud enough, then my voice will make it light, or maybe if I run around fast enough, I'll create little sparks, and then it'll turn into a fire that'll light the room. No. All you do is you walk over to a blind and you pull it up and you say, all I'm going to do is allow the light in. And you pull that blind even just a little bit, boom, the light's in, the light does its work. The light makes it light. How? It is. It's there. I think that's the same with like love and the transformational power of the unseen spiritual world. And by saying spiritual world, I don't even know that I really mean like angels and demons and whatever. I just mean this like unseen something that transforms my desire and intent from something negative to something positive. Like, an addict no longer wanting their drug of choice. How does that happen? I mean, yeah, they have to put in the discipline and the practice. They have to open the blinds up every day and let the light in. But how do they go from wanting the next high to being delighted by the light coming in, being delighted by the morning and the birds and the sunshine and the fact that they get to breathe each moment? That's what I mean by spiritual transformation. And so here I sit in my Toyota RAV4, parked on the side of a dirt road, looking out through my open windows. To the right, there's a field with beautiful little clusters of daisies all over it. It's green. The sun is so warm over everything. I can't see the sun. It must be like right above us, but it's lighting everything perfectly. The grass is green. The trees are green. The sky is, a deep light blue. Not a cloud in sight. The mountains are in the distance. They're covered in evergreen trees. There's some horses, a few cows in the field with the daisies. Oh, a butterfly flies by. There's some wooden fence posts, some barbed wire. And so we see that the loss we choose, the pain we accept, is really all just a gift. My surrender to not being busy at this moment, to not rushing around getting something done, is that I hear the birds and I feel the sun. The breeze dances across my bangs and my face. I watch the grass wave back and forth in it, and I'm aware of the peace within and around me in this moment. I'm aware of the gift. It's not that you need to delight in the sword that pierces your heart. It's simply that you need to resist not the sword so that you may feel your heart. Resist not. It kind of sounds woo-woo in a way. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm a woo-woo now. Woo-woo. Or maybe this is how one finds inner peace. Who knows? But I gotta head back to the house now, get dressed and go to work. I will take this field of daisies with me. I foresee myself losing this stillness a few moments into serving tables. But who knows? Maybe it'll linger. I put a lot less pressure on myself to be awesome because I'm just trusting the process that I'm slowly becoming better and better. Anyway, kind of feel like I'm rambling now, so the end is near. In fact, it's so near that I get to say to you now, peace out.